Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, if you have your head in the sand, this is Lorne Lanning.
Hi. Good to be here.
We go way back, so, you know,
We do.
if I seem uncomfortable, I'm not. I'm just trying to create, you know, some sort of tension.
Imaginary tension. There we go.
He's already been
We
in
could
Vegas
really
for
create
2
some
days, so he's
tension.
adjusted.
Yeah.
Did you come down just for dice?
Came down just for dice, and then.
Are you on vacation now?
Are you kidding? We build games. We don't get vacations.
Well, you just released your game.
I know we did. We just released Stranger.
Congratulations.
Oddworld-strangers-wrath. Thank you very much. And so far so good. So hopefully people will really like the game.
I guess this
And,
is a good place for you guys to come right afterwards, because you've got like your industry peers who can kind of comment on.
Well, DICE is a great event. You know, DICE is it's a small place where a lot of key people come together and a lot of interesting minds, and everyone is able to talk and communicate in ways that they're usually not able to at the other conferences, because they're just too. You know, E3 is a great show, but it's just everyone is working at E3, and here it's more about learning. Everyone's here to learn, and so there's only one session of talks happening at one time, very interesting speakers, and everyone seems to get something from it. And then when you go downstairs to the bar or something, you go, oh, hey, you know, and it's basically a lot of people from the community that you know that make a difference. So a lot of business happens here as well, in a very, you know.
In a very high school reunion kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, I think so. Childish kind of puts the mark on it quite well.
So speaking of learning, like what would you say for you has been a highlight for the event so far?
It was really interesting. This morning there was a Mark Echo talk, and you know, he's got the whole clothing Echo Unlimited, and he gave a really interesting talk on popular culture and paying attention to popular culture and how game designers might pay attention to that differently. And then he gave a lot of indications of how people see the world, how they spend their leisure time. You know, that's not something you're usually getting at a game design conference. You know, that's something that's like game designers that are looking for new ways to understand the world and the people of the world. It's very interesting for them to hear. I emulate a lot of the same feelings, which is I don't necessarily believe that today we're building games for people the way that people want their games. I think we're still so heavily embedded in technology and process and the systems that we're kind of building games that they accept and they'll buy, but are not really what they'd want, you know.
Right.
And we still need to cross that barrier to start building games that people just be like, you know, I thought a game was this thing, but I didn't realize it was this, and now I'm going to start playing when before I had no interest, you know.
Right.
So.
Well, you can probably talk firsthand about the struggles of technology and trying to bring an art form.
It's horrible.
Market.
Yeah, it's terrible. You know, it's just building games is like you know, Chinese torture prison, you know, water torture or something. I mean, it's just incredibly difficult, and with a lot of different personalities, you know, artistic personalities, technical personalities, business personalities. Everyone's trying to synergize to create one product. It's a mess, you know. It's a horrible process building games. And if anyone tells you differently, they're lying. You know, if anyone says, "Oh, we built this game and it was so much fun to build," they're just liars. And it's not. It's extremely difficult. So it's easy to get caught. When the process is really difficult, it's easy to get caught up in that process and sort of lose sight of the end goal. You know, and we've certainly been guilty of that at times, and I think everyone has. But when you try to come to an event like this, you try to get more information outside of your own box, more experiences coming from places that you wouldn't expect, that maybe they help us be better at what we do.
Yeah, and so did you see Stan Lee?
Saw Stan Lee. It was great. Stan Lee is just a hilarious man, but, you know, I mean, he's birthed so many characters. And I think he's really interesting standing there, because Stan Lee is talking about characters that he birthed. He's facing an audience of people who are really trying to birth characters for the next century. Yeah. And a really interesting difference is, and I asked him right afterwards, I said, so, you know, Stan, when you were creating Spider-Man, you know, the first time, what was the budget that you had to convince the publisher, you know, to spend? And he goes, well, we were paying artists $10 a page, and, you know, so maybe the comic book was a few $100s. So he was still going through like a business approval process of selling his characters, and it was only for a couple $100s. Well, today we do this, and it's more like movie making, where you're selling your character, but you need $10 to $20 million to build it, you know, with the next generation system. So he comes from a different era, and he goes, you know, he goes, I should have said something about that in my talk, because it's so true. You guys are facing such completely different odds, you know, than we were facing. We were creating these Because the more money gets involved, the more difficult it is, the more people have to have approval, you know, the more miserable the whole process becomes.
Cool. So what do you take away from an event like this now when you go home, besides maybe some gambling winnings?
Well, I gamble enough.
And an autograph from Stan Lee.
Yeah, we gamble enough with our own lives. That it's like, so many of us go, I'm not putting a quarter in that slot machine. I worked too hard for this quarter. You know, we gamble with the company every day. So game development is kind of a crazy business. And so you have that energy, excitement of gambling too often to really be playing the slots in Vegas.
You're all in probably far too often
Exactly.
as well.
But there's some talks coming up later, like Seamus Blackley's talk from CAA about alternative financing, independent financing for games. Now that's something really interesting. What happens when other parties start paying for games the way other parties pay for movies and television shows? And does that change the nature of the politics of how games are built? You know, and these are really, really interesting questions at this point in time for game development, especially as we're heading into the next generation, PlayStation 3, Xbox 2, you know, and whatever is going to be down the road after that.
Yeah, so what do you see as like the future? You know, you're learning so much and you're hearing so much about what's going to sort of come up in the next 5 to 10 years. What do you see? You know,
Well,
what would you like to see, I guess, would be the better question.
What I'd like to see is I want to see the idea of screens just go away. You know, maybe 5, 10 years is a little aggressive, but maybe it's 20 years out, you know. But I believe that your contact lenses or your glasses will be your screens. Everything will be voice activated. You'll be able to have little, you know, the Xbox 5 is inside here, you know, along with the PS9. They're both in there together, you know, along with the
Special
cell
sneak
phone
preview right here.
and all of these things, you know, that'll all be about that big attachment.
What is all this stuff? Look
This
at
is
you.
like your
You're like the
email,
Borg.
your phone, you know. We are the Borg, you know. We're quickly becoming the Borg. And the young people know this. You know, the adults are having a little harder problem sort of believing it, but the young people believe it real quick. But we'll just be walking down the street and virtual characters will just be walking around us, you know. And I'll say, "Hey, Zoe, you know, why don't you tune in to channel X9 18.1, right?" And you'll go, boom, and you'll go, "Oh my God, where did she come from?" I'll be like, "Hey, she hangs out with me all the time." You know, this will be
Isn't
like
that a novel?
virtual realities for real.
You've been reading too much Neil Stephenson.
yeah. No, we'll take it further than that for sure. For sure. He'll kind of feel like George Orwell's 1984 when we got to 1984. You know, we were way more advanced in different ways, but still he pointed towards a certain future. But
By keeping it fun, of course.
It's got to be fun, you know. It's got to be fun as long as it's a game, but they're going to become other experiences as well. So right now we take vacations for other experiences. Sometimes it's just to get away. Sometimes it's to feel something different. Sometimes it's to have a different type of relationship. All of these things, you know, games are just the nucleus. They're like little crabs that have yet to really walk out of the ocean and become other things, you know. And we're looking at a medium that, although it looks very powerful and high tech and cool, it's still just a simple little malformed child that's really yet to get its legs. I mean, the future is
Gross.
Yeah, it's kind of a.
You make it sound so attractive.
Yeah. Not really the child you want to birth, but you know, it's we've got a long way to go. We've got a long way to go, and the future is fascinating, scary, exciting. You know, when quantum computing is all of a sudden giving us trillions of more computations per second that we could, you know, a lot of people don't even know how to use. This will create experiences where it's going to change the way we live. So I think games will be a huge catalyst towards this, like, entire life changes, people living in virtual realities, I mean, literally. And we'll have the downside and we'll have the upside, but hopefully we'll have some really great stuff in between that, you know, people enjoy. And
no plans to retire soon then?
No.
Sucker for punishment.
Yeah. That's kind of like wanting a vacation, you know. It's the thing you really want to have happen and never seems to come.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool, I'll let you get back to the show.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool. Great. Thanks for having me on, Zoe.